Hi there YouTube, this is the Magnus bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. Today my opponent chose the Greenskins and I decided to play as Blessed Bretonnia. So let's take a look at the build. This one you've seen before, 2 Pegasus Knights, 4 Peasant Bowmen, 4 of the Spearmen, or Polearm arms, got 4 Spearmen, 2 of the Paladins on their flying mounts, 1 Lady for and King Louis Liancourt on his flying mount. My opponent went with 2 Savage Orcs in the center with 4 Orc Biggins beside them. In the back here he's got 2 Orc Boar Boy Biggins. He also has an Orc War Boss, the nasty Ragnarok Spider, an Orc Shaman, and I believe he has 2 Goblin Big Bosses. I see one. Oh, there's the other one here. Okay. And he also, way off in the distance, which I noticed but forgot about, is his Goblin War Riders. So, as I have flying, I'm going to try to see if I can get any opportunities here as he moves towards my infantry line. I deployed taking advantage of this slight hill, little terrain, never hurt anybody. But as always with Bretonnia, I want to make sure he comes to me so I can use my charge defense against all. That's especially important against the Greenskins because they are, well, they've got quite a bit of charge on most of them. So I dive in and take a shot as Orc Biggins on this side, and I'm going to do the same thing to him on the other. Just trying to stir things up a bit and get a little damage in. And obviously with him only having ground forces, I don't have to be too careful. But my paladin here, he gets caught. Orcs do have high mass and they're very good at catching flyers. You can see I'm commanding this guy to get out of dodge, go, but he's just kind of sitting there, literally. You could at least swing back. Looks like he's frozen. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be how that goes. Over here I was able to extract my flyers after putting a little bit of a hurt on the Orc Biggins, but I pulled back and I'm going to stay back there. Now my paladin finally decides to unfreeze himself, and for as much as he had working on him for that amount of time, he didn't take too bad of damage, so I didn't feel too badly about it. So now my opponent is going to be defensive, which he should be. He doesn't want to let me keep picking away at the edges of his units and withdrawing, so you'll notice he kind of forms up into a tighter center. And that's not going. I can't punish him for that because I don't have any artillery. And I'm actually going to fast forward because there's just kind of some jockeying here. I act like I'm going to attack, but I don't. And then I realize as long as I'm acting like I'm going to attack, he's going to sit there. So I chill out and let him start to advance, and then I start to work in the position behind him and let my peasant bowmen start to fire off at his infantry. And you're going to see the Orc Biggins are going to take some damage, and so are the Savage Orcs. And the Peasant Bowmen are going to be quite effective against them because they don't have any shield, and they're not super high armor either. The Savage Orcs have none, and 50 on the Biggins. So my guys are going to stand back and take the charge, and because of the charge defense, they shouldn't take too much damage out the gate, and they don't. And the Pegasus Knights are going to start diving in and disrupting with rear attacks, and you're going to see, like, look how quick that just kills leadership. The damage, the shock, and the fear, just it all adds up together for a perfect storm of a mess for him. Now the Ragnarok Spider he sends into the middle, goes after my archers, not a bad choice. But the Peasant Bowmen are going to focus fire on him, and I also have my flying squad here beating on him, and he's going to go down really quick. The Ragnarok Spider, for as tough as it seems, can be pretty darn squishy to missiles and hero and lord units. Here his Orc War Boss breaks in, starts beating on some bowmen as well. Not a bad choice. Here I wrapped around some infantry so I can put them behind. On the left side his men have already retreated, so I start rolling in, and then we're just looking at a pretty chaotic battle element here. I send the Paladin after his Ragnarok Spider because I want to get him far off the field. This Paladin's hunting down his Goblin Wolf Riders, which are broken now at this point. I'm a little late recalling them. You'll notice this infantry, the polearms, I never pull them in, which cost me the right flank, quite dangerous. His war boss is now into another unit of peasant bowmen, not a good situation either. I'm going to have my bowmen who are not engaged start firing at the war boss, and in comes the Pegasus Knights to disrupt him and do damage, which they do quite well. You'll notice right off the charge they do very good damage. Some of my units on this side start to reform. The center is his, undoubtedly. I start pulling back to try to save my guys here. I'm also going to use spells every chance I get, as does my opponent. So he has Potion of Toughness and Wah down right now. The king comes in with his flying contingent to try to damage the war boss, and we're going to see the archers are here. The paladin, this paladin's finally coming back in. I finally realized I never used these pole arms. Quite the micro mistake, but we're going to get a full beat down here on the orc war boss because there's just a lot of dangerous units moving around. I'm using the Pegasus Knights to strike different targets, put fear in them, just break that shaky leadership that the Greenskins have. And of course, a big break to it would be getting rid of the orc war boss, which I do now. He's shattered. He will not return to the fight, and that's going to put things heavily in my favor. You'll also notice here in the center, I'm starting to outnumber my opponent. These bowmen have been able to escape trouble for the most part, but here comes the Arachnarok Spider for his final hurrah, and of course the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, which absolutely wrecked my poor little peasants who just have no melee skills whatsoever. The damsel still remained alive. I still have both my paladins and I still have the king, which this late in the game, if you can keep that much of your leader corps together, it's going to do good things. The Arachnarok gets ripped apart, and the rest of the Greenskins, after seeing that, decide they have seen enough. So let's take a look at the post-battle summary. I obviously had a much larger army than my opponent, and I took twice the casualties as well. I want to say good game to Carl. He recognized me and asked if I was the Magnus from YouTube. I am. I hope you don't mind me showing the battle. I think he did really well. It was a tough matchup. I feel like the build I have was pretty well suited for fighting against him. And of course, like a lot of people do against Bretonnia, they bring biggins, they bring a lot of anti-large, and the only large I have is my flying contingent. Everything on the ground is infantry. And that's where, before we get to the tail of the tape here, I just want to mention, picking an unusual composition for a faction can help you a lot, because good players, and even average players, and even myself, I will pick an army based on what the other faction is likely to bring. So basically, they're trying to counter you. So if you bring an army that's unusual, not bad, I just mean unusual, i.e. using some of the units that are really good, but not all of them, it can give you quite an advantage. So the damsel just buffs and whatnot. She did fine with that. The paladins were mainly, or almost completely, targeted against special units, so they did good, as did the king. The infantry fared well, except for the guy who decided not to fight. We will brand them as cowards instead of branding me as a moron. The peasant bowmen did well. Again, a lot of time spent on the Ragnarok Spider, the Orc War Boss, so I'm fine with that. The Pegasus Knights, they're not a very good unit. I've said that before, but I do enjoy using them. I still think there's probably better ways to spend that money in this build, so you'll probably see some changes in the upcoming build. Taking a look at Carl Camp's army over here, his Orc Biggins here did a heck of a job, over 100 kills each. The other two did not do as well, but you have to factor in opponents. Savage Orcs, for their price, did fine. His big bosses did fine. The Orc Shaman, he must have focused on buffs and debuffs, because I didn't see like the Foot of Gork or anything like that. The Orc War Boss was very disruptive, so I felt he did well. The Cavalry, not as much. I don't think they're, considering they're anti-large, there really wasn't a target for them on the field, but they are good for tying down the flyers. The Goblin Wolf Riders never stood a chance, and the Ragnarok Spider, which is a considerable spend, really I think was the Achilles heel for him in this battle. I was able to dispatch it pretty quickly which I had to do with him busting through my center, but having done that, it just took a lot of the value out of his army off the field very early. So again, good game to my opponent. I'm glad I got to fight against one of my subscribers, though I get nervous every time thinking you guys are going to always bring your A game against me, but I do appreciate that. Let's take a look and see where we are on the leaderboard. Here we go. Leaderboard. A lot of familiar faces on the top up here as always. I've played most of these guys. But I am now in the top 100, number 99. So just barely. But we made it back, and hopefully with some good play and some effort, we'll be able to hang out up here up top. So anyways, thanks again. This is the Magnus. Please like, please subscribe, and until the next time, take care, and I will see you on the ladder.